So the stage is set. The principal players are now firmly in place. Within the next several hours, we are going to witness history again, a second handshake between the leaders of North Korea and the United States, this time in Hanoi. If we cast our minds back a couple of years, no one would have ever thought such a thing would be possible. Let's get some expert analysis on the summit from Min Jeong-hun, who's professor at the Korea National Diplomatic Academy. Thank you for joining us again this morning, Professor.
Thank you.
So, Washington's chief nuclear negotiator, Stephen Beigun, who's been intimately involved in laying the groundwork for this summit in Hanoi, has said that the Trump administration's goals in Vietnam, they're rather ambitious. They are threefold, namely, agreeing to a shared understanding of what constitutes denuclearization, which is a big bone of contention between the two sides, also a clear and concise roadmap towards peace and denuclearization, and a freeze on all of the regime's WMD programs. How realistic do you think those goals are to being achieved in Vietnam?
Well, I think that Stephen Beigun mentioned the three things just for what U.S. ultimately wants from North Korea. I think that what the U.S. wants from North Korea in these the negotiations is to achieve the complete denuclearization of North Korea. And to achieve the goal, the North Korea and the U.S. needed to have agreement about what constitutes the complete denuclearization. And to achieve the complete denuclearization, they need to have a roadmap to go there. Mm-hmm. And I think that the freeze on the WMD programs and the delivery means it's just initial the measures to go there. It's kind of the starting point to implement the complete denuclearization. So Stephen Beigun mentioned the complete approach, the goal, eventual goal, and to get there, he also mentioned the process or the corresponding measures, and North Korea's the denuclearization measures. So the all comes just in the three things. But I think that again, that comment clearly shows what really the U.S. wants from North Korea.
Okay, so that's the end goal, but perhaps this week in Vietnam, if they can go some way towards achieving parts of those goals, then it might be deemed a success. Now, early expectations, it's fair to say, have faded somewhat since Singapore, but most people are expecting some kind of move in the right direction. They are expecting it to be a more meaningful outcome in Hanoi than what happened in Singapore. What do you think both sides will agree to, even if they are small steps?
Well, small steps, but just remind of what we got from the previous summit last year. We got the 4 agreements between the two countries. First one is the building of new relations between the two countries. Second one is to establish a lasting and solid peace on the Korean Peninsula. The third one is the complete denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. And the last one is the returning the remains of the American soldiers killed in the Korean War. So in the second summit this time, they need to show some progress in each agreement. So I think that for the first and second agreements, like the building relations and the establishing the peace regime, I believe that the two countries got some the good agreement about what the U.S. provides to North Korea for those things, like for the building of new relations. The U.S. I think is ready to give the North Korea like the establishing a liaison office, and for the second thing, the building of the peace regime on the Korean Peninsula. I believe that the two countries are ready to sign, or not to sign, but to just declare the kind of the peace declaration to end the Korean War. And for the last the agreement, the returning the remains of the American soldiers, I believe that they are already talking about the further returning the plans. So for the three agreements would be good, and we would see some meaningful progress. But the last one is most important and uncertain. How much the North Korea is willing to give up as a nuclear program, and what U.S. want to give to North Korea for the corresponding measures. And taken all the information together, and I think that Yongbyon, the nuclear facility, under the negotiation table, and the freezing and the double-ended programs are also on the table. And I believe that two countries are still talking about the details of those two things. And for the corresponding U.S. measures, the three agreements I mentioned, that could be the corresponding measures for the U.S.
Well, I think Trump would be pretty happy with an inventory from the North showing what they have, rather than any bigger step than that. And it would be quite remarkable to have some form of an agreement declaring an end to the Korean War after all these decades. Of course, you'd need to get South Korea and China on board on that as well eventually. In regards to China, they are the elephant in the room. Kim Jong-un took a train all the way through China. Many thought he might stop and speak to Chinese President Xi Jinping along the way, but he did not. But how involved do you think China is in these diplomatic back channels? And do you think Beijing is putting pressure on North Korea on what is going to happen at this summit in Hanoi?
Well, it is true that China is also important actor in this matter, but I think that China's influence over North Korea is limited, because historically China and North Korea, they just take advantage of each other for its political and diplomatic benefits. And for this summit, and North Korea and the Chinese leaders met in advance of this summit, and they exchanged what they want for this summit. And I think that Chairman Kim is just listened to what President Xi wanted, and just considered that thing indirectly. So still China is putting some influence over this summit, but the influence is limited. So just the step back and the helping the other hands or assistance to North Korea to increase the North Korea's the bargaining power against the United States.
While the focus is on denuclearization, it's unfortunate that one point is often overlooked, and that's namely North Korea's atrocious records on human rights, political prison camps, executions, and whatnot. And do you think that the regime's human rights abuses are ever going to come up in a serious way in any of these summits? It's fair to say both Presidents Trump and Moon have kind of deferred on this issue. They're focused primarily on the peace process and denuclearization. But at what point do they have to start saying to Kim Jong-un, look, you've got to start treating your people with some respect?
Well, the human rights issue of North Korea is also important, the matter that the U.S. and South Korea take. But still, we are in the initial process. So for this, the phase of time, it is more important to continue the negotiations instead of the North Korea walking away from the negotiation. So I believe that President Trump and Secretary Pompeo and President Moon are already recognizing the importance of the human rights issues of North Korea, but it's not the right time to talk about that. But after establishing some initial progress, and before before the tour, moving toward the last stage of the negotiations, and these countries are talking about human rights issues, because U.S. Congress is very eager to deal with the human rights issues of North Korea. And to achieve or implement the peace agreement and the normalizing relations between the two countries, it is necessary for U.S. Congress to ratify the peace agreements and the normalizing relations. So before the stage, the North Korea leader and the President Trump need to talk about human rights issues to satisfy or please U.S. Congress.
Well, it's whenever there is a bill put on the table regarding North Korean human rights in U.S. Congress, it's almost unanimous, the vote in favor of that bill. So hopefully we'll see something come of that down the line. Professor, as always, it's been wonderful to hear your insights. I believe you're coming back to join us again on Thursday, the day of the actual summit. So we look forward to hearing your insights then. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and thank you.
Thanks so much.